Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dot to Dot. Today I'm going to talk about one is the road that is coming from the swamp and possibly into the money pit area. The second I'm going to talk about is the holes and the gold concentration that is found in the water sampling by Dr. Spooner. And we're also going to look at the artifacts and possibly a way that we can, or the team can, find out if they have come from Israel. So this is going to be pretty exciting, and we'll start off with the Google Earth. And here's the holes, but we're not going to start off with the holes. We're going to look at this, and this is from Google Earth. It is from 8/21, and this is where they're excavating in the last episode. And this is what they call the Dunfield spoils. So, and this was the Dunfield excavation, this round circle here. And supposedly he haphazardly took his digger and dumped all the dirt from the excavation into this area, and they're looking for what he may have missed. And they found some beams, and they also found a road that was here that was possibly going in this direction. Now, in I believe it was episode 2, it was Terry DeVoe that made the observation with this 1930s aerial photo of this road right here that is coming in this direction. You can see it's a very faint line, but it is possibly a road. He proposed it was possibly a depositor road that was going towards the swamp area. And so what I did is I took Google Earth and I do what I do, and that is to overlay it with precision to scale and orientation. And we see the road right here. And if we dissipate this image, we can see that it goes right into that area. So it is a good possibility that this is a road, the road that they uncovered, that is going towards the swamp area. And I can speculate a little bit, I guess. I do that very well. But we can put in that road and perhaps where it might go. And that is the area in the swamp that they're excavating. And this is pretty much the line in which the road that they're uncovering that goes towards the money pit. Remember, Steve Guptill said that it was going towards C1. And yes, it is pretty much coming in that line. I don't have the accuracy that Steve does, but you know, you ask why would they come up over this rise? It goes up about, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 feet. It's not that heavy of a slope that comes. But why when they go around here? Well, because this is the ocean and rocks. There's more rocks along the shore, so I don't think they would come along the shore here. They would make more of a route, maybe direct. But this is going in this direction, so this is what I came up with. So it's a possibility, and it comes down into this area here. Another interesting thing is that this, on the 1937 survey, it has a location of this old shaft. And this may be a reason for this road that is going to this old shaft. I don't know what time period this was dug, but it was on the 1937 survey, so it was done before 1937. And I'll bring that up real quick so you can see. Now this right here is the oak entrance that Olivier from Oak Island Research and I propose where the money pit is. And if you notice, it's a lot closer to this road than where they're digging now. So, but this is the 1937 survey, and you can see it's marked with an old shaft. And I have this precisely overlaid onto Google Earth. And you can see that the head and shaft and the chapel shaft are in same orientation. So that's that. Let's move on to the holes. And what I have here is the Dunfield excavation. And this line right here, this circle, is basically at 20 feet below the surface level. Everything here is from 0 to below to 20 feet. And basically, I think Dunfield just excavated this area to level it out so he could bring in his crane and his digging bucket and start digging this hole. Now, this was taken from the Behringer survey, the profile, and they have basically show a cone of how Dunfield dug his hole to look for the money pit. And by the way, this is accurate to where the historical money pit would be, and this is where Hedden and Chapel were actually going for this historical money pit location, and that was on the 1937 survey and also on the Behringer survey. So the historical money pit is supposedly here. So in this diagram, I have it set at, this is 40 feet, 60 feet, and this red here is 90, and this is 100, and then it goes to 120 and 140 feet. And this right across here is approximately 6 to 7 feet in diameter. So this is basically the width of the Dunfield's digger bucket, and he didn't get much farther than this, so the hole didn't open up. And of course, the hole wasn't perfectly circular either. There's areas that were less dug out than others. But as you can see, these holes that they're drilling are well outside the 90-foot ring. And that's where they're finding all these pieces of wood and artifacts. So they are definitely exploring uncharted territory. It was not excavated by Dunfield at all. The red holes are where they found wood, and the pink holes, CD 4.5 and D2, are where they found the artifacts. This is where they found the sheet metal artifact, and this is where they found the pointed iron artifact. Both of them were made of iron, and I'm going to get into that a little bit, and we can sort of understand the makeup of these two pieces of information that were extracted. So the event level of the wood and pretty much all these are between 89 and 90 feet. So that sort of tells us that perhaps there is a tunnel running in this direction, pretty much east to west. And perhaps there's a tunnel coming in this direction. We don't know yet. But we have K7 down here, all the way down here, which has gold content. So what does this mean about the gold content that is found in BC4, which he doesn't mention, by the way, in his final analysis? I'm going to show you here. Here is Dr. Spooner's notes, and he's got K7 at 0.55 parts per billion, F4, and he has mentioned BC4 at 0.046. So I marked that as a gold hole. However, in his final presentation, let's see, here it is. In his final presentation, he does not have BC4 on here. I don't know why. And some of these levels are different. Like C1 is different by 0.05. He has 0.067. Here he has 0.17. K7 is definitely lower than what he has on his notes. So I don't know. The thing is, though, is this seawater base is pretty much accurate. I looked it up and I found a really nifty article. It's an article about gold in seawater, and it was made by, this is a laboratory engineering and consultant, so it's very scientific. I'm not going to get into it real heavily to bore you guys, but it is very interesting. They do all these studies and experiments on the solubility of metallic gold in seawater, and it's all very chemistry oriented, and it is there. I mean, gold can become soluble in seawater. So Dr. Spooner is right on the money. And what is, it's right here. Our findings are 10 to 13 parts per trillion, which in Dr. Spooner's baseline, he said it was 0.010, which would be right in the low end of their findings of parts per trillion. So he went to the low end, and he did his in parts per billion. So that is pretty much right in the middle. So these are pretty high concentrations of gold. And another thing is too about this study is it's talking about seawater. So gold becomes soluble in seawater more than just regular water. So the one thing that we can determine or extrapolate from this information is that these holes vary from some of the other holes that he took samples from, which I don't have on here. But if these holes are showing gold in them, then that means that there's seawater present within these gold. Now, Dr. Spooner took a taste of some of this water here, and he said it tasted funny like iron, but he didn't say it was seawater. So that even makes the probability of high concentrations of gold if it was in fresh water even greater. So just to let you guys know, these guys are pretty much stating something that is scientifically correct and verifiable. So we find that in CD 4.5 and in D2, they found two artifacts. One which was a sheet metal artifact, and a little bit about sheet metal. The machine that is used to make sheet metal was invented by Leonardo da Vinci, and also it did not really come into use until the late 1600s. So sheet metal, that doesn't mean that it wasn't used by somebody, because Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s came up with a sheet metal machine, but it really didn't get into popular use until the late 1600s. However, this is such a small piece of sheet metal, we don't know. This could have been hand formed. And then we have this what looks like a stylus. I mentioned that it may be a pen, a fountain pen tip, but it's all encrusted, and this is probably one of the reasons why the gold is present in here by the nature of what's encrusted in it, and perhaps it got picked up in the sediment and was bonded to these artifacts in that way. Or there's also another way that it may have been part of the iron itself. This is taken by, let's see, I have here's the chemical makeup. And this is what I found is this element analysis of the pointed artifact had huge, or not really huge, but a pretty high for a trace element, concentration of osmium. Now, osmium is a very interesting element because osmium is the hardest and densest natural found element in the earth. And it is very rare. It's a very rare element. It's denser than gold and harder than diamonds. And the interesting thing about this is this iron sample is showing indications that it came from what they called a iron ore copper mine. And this is the reason is because iron ore has a certain chemistry from where it comes from on the earth. Not all iron mines are going to be located where they're going to have elements like osmium, titanium, cobalt, and uridium. Iron ore that is found with these kinds of elements are also going to be found with elements of gold and copper and silver. In other words, these what they call coinage metals are found with iron deposits in only certain places on the earth. So we can look at the other sheet metal, and I believe that's right here. And this one had a lesser concentration of osmium, but it still had the iridium and the cobalt, and it didn't have the titanium. So these artifacts most likely were created by different ores from different areas. And the article I want to show you that I found was, this is a study that was done just recently, last year, March, and it is a very scientific study done by people in Israel, I believe, and it's talking talking about osmium isotope analysis as being a way of telling where, that's what provenancing means, telling where ancient iron comes from. So I'm not going to get into the article. I'll leave it in the descriptions for you guys that want to look at it. But they took iron samples from places in the Levant, which is Jordan and also down in northern Israel. And these are the results that they went through all these experiments of smelting iron from these iron ore from these mines, and then analyzing it for the osmium content. And it says right here, the results of systematic analysis presented here show great promise for osmium, and I think this is isotope uh, comparison, as a viable tool for provenancing, in other words, telling where ancient iron comes from. And the study just shows that, osmium, when it's heated up in the furnace, does not change in its concentrations or its chemistry characteristics. So I'll leave this in the description if you guys want to check it out. So there is a good possibility that they may, just like the lead cross, be able to tell where these iron samples came from. But the thing about these things, the most exciting things, are the gold that was found in them. Now, whether it was in the iron to begin with, or it was hard deposited upon the piece itself through some method, we don't know. If they're finding flakes and that piece that they found on the sheet metal, it looked like it was spiraling out, it's hard to say how it's attached to these pieces, but they did find the flakes on there in the encrustment, so it may be that it's in the water. Now, the water samples do show that it's coming in contact with gold somewhere. And one of the things that interests me is that the gold that was found on the sheet metal was the same as the gold found on Jim McGinnis's cross presented by Joan McGinnis early in the Oak Island series. And I have here's the gold analysis of the flakes, and we can see that it has a lot of copper and silver, and this is indicative of gold that is found in one of those mines, which is a iron or copper gold mine. In other words, they also mine iron there, but the copper and the gold are also in the same location. So if they're finding a lot of gold, the copper might be already alloyed in it. And these locations of these mines are very prevalent in South America, and they call it rose gold. Now, whether it is alloyed on purpose by the person manufacturing the gold or it's found that way in a natural state, that's not for me to say, but I know that in these mines that the copper and gold are found together. The copper is the more abundant element that is found in these mines. So that's what I have. We're very interested in Jim McGinnis because Jim McGinnis is mentioned on one of the documents. He is mentioned on La Formula at the bottom. So I'm going to be doing more videos about the possibility of the relevance of this cross. Not only do I think this is relevant to Nolan's cross, but if this was found, this cross was found in the money pit, and it has the same alloy content of the gold found on these pieces of metal that were in the flood tunnel area, there's a good chance there may be a connection to what's going on here. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.